Welcome to Financial Issues with Shanna Burt, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Shanna Burt.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. It is May 8th, 2024, and we're so glad that you joined us today. And unfortunately, our video is still not back working in the studio. So for all you guys know, I could be sitting here in my PJs, but I'm not. Seth can see me here in the studio.
That's right. Shanna has a very nice outfit on. She's not in her PJs, though it could be fun to do a PJ show, Shanna, but we definitely would have to be audio only for that one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for joining us today. I know you guys can see Seth, and you'll see a picture of me up there, but we're working on getting these video issues lined back out. So for the time being, I'm sorry if you're watching on TV and you get a little bored just looking at my picture, but it'll be okay when they switch to Seth because you'll get to see him live.
Well, that could be a bad thing as well, but anyway.
Well, here at Financial Issues, we are a stewardship ministry, and we help you to be a good steward of everything God has trusted you to manage. For just $132 a year, you can become one of our partners. As a partner, you will not only have access to our biblically responsible investment strategy, where we will equip you to honor God in the way that you invest, but you'll also be providing the funding that we need to conduct the research that we do that drives the strategy that we give to you so that you can honor God in your investments. We also use the money that's donated to grow our exposure to grow the megaphone of financial issues, to grow the audience through TV, radio, podcast, and social media, so that we can equip more like-minded people who want to honor God in the way that they invest and fund the kingdom work here in the earth. One of the ways that you can do that is to make a donation to Preborn Ministries. Well, if you're just listening in this month for the first time, you may wonder how making a donation to Preborn Ministries can help financial issues, but there you can maximize your giving this month by doing that, because there's a generous donor that's going to donate money to financial issues. For every dollar that we raise for Preborn Ministries, they're going to make that same donation to financial issues. So you can support the great work that Preborn is doing, and that will generate a gift to financial issues to continue the work that we're doing here and helping people to honor God in the way that they invest. Well, this may sound a little bit similar to yesterday, but we didn't quite get to it. Today, we are going to be talking about dividends, what they are, and how to obtain them in a God-honoring way, and how to use them wisely when you're building your own portfolio using our strategy. We're going to answer your questions about how to build biblically responsible portfolios that seeks from a heart that seeks to honor God first in everything, even including your investments. Whether it's a little, whether it's a lot, we can help you use what you've been given to honor God. The stewardship verse today comes from Proverbs 20:21. An inheritance gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. Stick around and we'll talk more about that a little bit later in the show. It is a bit of a slow economic week this week, but all eyes have been, last week was a really heavy week, and we gave you a lot of data. We're going to reflect back on some of that data from last week. And the first week of the month is always all about the labor market. So we get 3 different jobs reports that come out, one from ADP and 2 from the government, that gives us an indication of what's going on there. And, why do we look at the labor market? Why is that so important? If you can remember back in January, every month, if we get any surprises in the jobs report, it really sends the market in either one direction or the other, depending on what was expected and how those numbers are reported. So we need to keep a strong labor market in order to prevent recession, because recession happens when companies lay people off, Consumers don't have as much money to spend. They're dipping into their savings. They're those kind of things. And we're a consumer-driven economy. So if we have too strong of a labor market, that means that companies are in competition with one another to get employees, and that means that wages go up. Well, that's good temporarily for workers, but not good for the whole business cycle, because if it costs companies more money to pay their employees or to attract and retain good quality employees, guess where that gets passed along? That gets passed along to the consumer. And, if we get into a bad situation with that, we have what's called a wage price spiral, where increasing wages because of competition for employees gets passed along to consumers, increases prices, and so on and so forth. And that causes inflation, which is bad. We've been trying to get inflation under control. We've seen inflation come down a good bit, but it's not where the Fed would want it, and it's not where we would want it either. So considering the data that we got last week about the labor market, payrolls grew by 175,000. Well, growth is good, but that growth seems to be losing a bit of steam. 175,000 jobs was far below the estimate and what was expected of 240,000 jobs. And the two prior months for March and February were, there's this phrase again, revised down by a total of 22,000. So there were 22,000 jobs that we thought existed in the two previous months that didn't really exist. So a lot of the miss was in the government sector, as the private sector added 167 of those 175,000 jobs. Now, that's a bright spot, and a welcome deviation from what we have been seeing is that the job creation has been very heavily by the government. We don't want to see that. Another bright spot was that there was an 87,000 person increase in the labor force. A good reason for unemployment rates to tick up is that more people are looking for jobs, either getting off of unemployment, getting off of their couch, entering the labor workforce for the first time. There was a downtick, though, in hours worked from 34.4 to 34.3. So not including the time span that we spent dealing with COVID, it is just 0.1 hour from matching the lowest since 2011. Why am I even mentioning this? Because there was another rise in those working part-time because they can't find full-time work. So hours worked tells us kind of whether people are working part-time or full-time. There's employers, it's much cheaper for employers to hire part-time workers because they don't have to pay for all of the benefits. And that, again, is from, the government really forcing certain things. If you work over a certain number of hours, your employer has to provide health insurance for you, so on and so forth. So it's not really that a lot more people are going to work. The labor participation rate held at 62.7. That's still far below those pre-COVID levels. I think you said 1 minute, but I can't really hear that well. It's that those willing to work are having to take multiple jobs. So why do we talk about jobs, and why is the market so focused on it? As long as most people are still getting paychecks from working, our economy can survive. The labor participation rate would, if that increased, that would be a good reason for unemployment to tick up. But we still need companies to stay healthy, to stay strong, and to provide those jobs that are so crucial. I hear the music. That means we got to take a break, but stick around. We're going to get to some partner questions and talk about those dividends. I'm your host, Shanna Burt. We'll be back after this short break.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life, get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Shanna and myself on this morning. Good to be here with you all. Shanna, we had teed up yesterday that topic on dividends. I know a lot of people were itching to hear it, so let's get to it right now. How about it?
Sounds good.
Yeah, dividends. So, it's a topic we talk about a lot, really important in terms of investing. So right away, Shanna, let's just start here. Can you break down what dividends are and how dividends might play a factor in an investor's portfolio?
Sure. So we are a stewardship ministry, and we talk a lot about we get our cues, we get our direction from principles found in the Bible. So, we exist to bring glory and pleasure to God. God owns us, and because he created us and he redeemed us with the blood of Jesus, when we are operating as we were intended to operate, we produce dividends in the kingdom of God. Well, companies, publicly traded companies, exist to return value to shareholders, to their owners. So they use the resources that they have at their disposal, and they employ people in order to produce goods or create services to sell to consumers. The goal is that they bring in more money than they spend, not like our government, and that they produce a good or a service and generate what's called a profit. That just means that they brought in more money than they spent. So companies, though, are led by management. The C-suite, as they're known, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, those are the top management of a company that really drive the overall strategy for the company, and the board of directors who gives the ultimate direction of the company. They make some high-level decisions, and then they give the mandate to the C-suite to carry that out. So the C-suite carries out what the board of directors decides. So the board of directors, though, decides what to do with profit. Are they going to, if they make money, are they going to reinvest that into the company? Or are they going to hire more employees? Are they going to make investments in their equipment? Are they going to upgrade their technology? Are they going to employ AI to make their business run more efficiently? Or are they going to pay dividends back to the owners. So if they don't, they've got to make some decisions. What do we do with the profit? Do we reinvest it? That typically happens in growth-oriented companies, companies as they're growing to get as big as they want. Once a company is well established, then they're able to return a lot of value to shareholders in the form of those dividends.
And, Shanna, you had mentioned that C-suite, the board of directors, just a question that came up there. Do they also determine the percentage of the dividend that could go to the shareholders if they do end up deciding that a dividend will be paid? Do they also determine, okay, this is how much?
Yeah, I mean, the way that it works most of the time is that the C-suite is going to make recommendations to the board, and then the board's going to, the company then will declare the dividend.
And Shanna, why do some stocks pay dividends and others don't? What's kind of the difference there?
Well, one reason right off the bat is that not every company makes a profit. So they don't really have money to pay out in the form of dividends unless they're maybe, using leverage or borrowing money or something like that. But you can tell by looking at the earnings. So EPS, or earnings per share, that's a metric that you can look at for a stock, and you can tell if that number is positive, that means that they're making money. If that number is negative, it means that they are not quite making money, or maybe they've experienced a really challenging environment, or maybe having some subpar people in the C-suite position, not directing the company that they should. So sometimes, some companies will reinvest money back into the company because they're growing rapidly. You see this, it's sometimes rare to see, really small companies or really new companies come out and pay a dividend because they just don't have the earnings to do it. They're really in that startup phase. A lot of times they use debt. They don't have positive earnings. They don't turn a profit, so to speak, for a while. And it's wise in most cases to postpone a dividend until you're profitable.
Yeah, and kind of a follow-up to that, are dividends always a sign of a good, healthy company, or can there be some discrepancy there?
Sometimes it is. Typically it is, as long as the company is not stretched too thin to pay those dividends. So sometimes struggling companies will pay big dividends to attract and retain shareholders in hopes that their operations will turn around or that they'll become profitable again. So anytime you see a really high dividend paying company, it's wise to look under the hood to see, are they able to pay those big dividends because they're making a lot of money, or is it because they're trying not to lose shareholders and see their stock prices crash?
And Shanna, this could be helpful also for really, really like starter level, first grade, people who are starting out, not people actually in first grade, but that level, you understand. When we say dividend stock, when we say income producing stock, the blue stocks that we see on the buy and the broad list, are those all one and the same thing?
Well, there are some stocks that are on our list that do pay dividends, but they're not blue. So we try to reserve the blue coating for income investors. So there is one income model, the 75 plus model, where you really want to be focused on, if not all of your stock holdings paying a dividend, at least most of them do, and that they pay higher dividends. So the blue ones are going to be the ones that pay high dividends and really have a pretty decent history of paying those dividends.
Yeah, good. And for the people who invest with us, Shanna, how concerned should they be about choosing a dividend stock or loading up their portfolio with dividend stocks? Is it kind of something that's really based on their situation, or is it a good target for them to try to have at least several dividend-paying stocks?
It depends on the age model. So the way that our system works is that they're kind of age-based, and it assumes an age 65 retirement. So if you're not retiring at age 65, if you're retiring earlier or later, then you probably need to adjust which model that you're going to choose. But if you're in the youngest model, you don't really even need to pay much attention to dividends at all. So you want to be really growth oriented when you're young because you have a lot of time. The small cap, the mid cap, even the micro cap companies, you'll notice that the weighting toward technology and the more aggressive type of investments is much heavier in the younger models than it is in the older. That's because we believe that as you near retirement, there's far more value in protecting against the downside than there is in capturing every bit of upside potential. Because whenever you're distributing when you're taking out of a portfolio, it damages the portfolio a whole lot if you experience a lot of downside volatility. Now, the flip side is true. The exact opposite is true. If you're young, volatility is actually your friend because you're not distributing from the portfolio. You're adding money into the portfolio, hopefully, on a pretty regular basis. So as you're adding money in and you see downside volatility, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of the same shares that you were buying at higher prices at much lower prices. So focus on those dividends as you start to get into the 55, 65 and on up age models.
Good. And Shanna, this might be a good question to close this conversation with. What's the best way for people who invest with the FISM model to use those dividends that they get? Should they reinvest it? Should they do something else with it? What would be your thoughts there? What's the best way to utilize those dividends?
So my preference, you'll hear a lot of people suggest that you reinvest your dividends, just have them automatically reinvested.
Yeah.
And I would say that's an okay strategy if you're not an active manager of your portfolio. And when I say active, I don't mean trading every day. I mean you're rebalancing, 3-4 times a year, or between 2 and 4 times a year. I prefer to have the money paid into cash rather than reinvested in the company, because that puts you in control of where that new money goes, because those dividends are money that you didn't have before. So you can treat that as new money and you get to direct them. You get to use your portfolio tracker to see where you're heavy, where you're light, and then you get to redirect that money to that area.
Very good. Folks, if those questions brought up more questions for you, please do ask them. That's great stuff. Shanna, let's get to some of these partner questions here with the time we have left. Morgan is the first one. He's saying, I found a job with HC76. I have a traditional IRA, 86% of funds in cash at 5% interest. I have 13% in a Roth investing in the Timothy model, 55 to 65. They have these stocks. They're clean. Should I invest in HC76 or other options? The investments are at a pretty good stable value fund. What do you think, Shanna? For Morgan, he's 60.
So he mentioned some T. Rowe Price, some Vanguard, and some other funds there. The ones that he's mentioning all look like bond fund. I guess it seems to me like he's trying to stay biblically responsible in the 401k, and that's really about the best way that you can do it in a 401k, because these other companies, they just don't screen for biblically responsible activity. And, when you're going to pick investments and you're not screening, there's a very, very high probability you're going to end up with at least one, if not many, stocks that are not biblically responsible in a mutual fund. And there's nothing that you can really do about it as an individual investor, because you hire these companies to manage money for you. So I would say that it's okay. Now, HC76 is not on our buy list, so this is not a recommendation for anybody, any of the partners that are listening. But since they work for this company, and especially if they can get it at a discount, I would say it would be okay to get some of that stock. It is biblically responsible, but I would not get overloaded in it. I would not have, depending on your risk level, it probably has the potential to be a volatile stock. So I wouldn't recommend having any more than 5 or 10% in that one company, and then trying to put the rest into some of the funds. Now, since you're 60, you may look into the possibility of doing an in-service withdrawal where you can roll some of that money. You may be able to, you'll have to check with your company. You may be able to roll some of that money into an individual IRA, and then you'll have all the biblically responsible options that you want, and you can keep contributing to your plan. Well, I hear the music. That means we're out of time today. Man, that went fast. Well, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries the short version of the show, we wish you a good day. If you want to catch the full version, go to financialissues.org, or better yet, get our phone app, where you can hear all the live shows and all of the past shows. as well. For the rest of you, stick around. We're going to be back with more financial issues.
When it comes to handling money, I'm lost. How to save, when to invest, where to invest. As a Christian, I don't want to give my money to people who are going to use it for things God hates. When I discovered financial issues, it was like a burden was lifted off my shoulders. Not only did I gain access to a simple investment strategy that I can manage myself, I also have the peace of mind that my money will not be going to companies that actively promote things that God hates.
Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Many mothers find strength in the experience of giving birth as they overcome physical challenges and embrace the journey of bringing a new life into the world. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
I'm John.
I'm Debbie, and we're Samaritan members.
We have 8 children, ages from 30 down to 15, and we have a ministry called Family Man Ministries.
When he left the pastorate to start the ministry, we had no income for about a year potentially, and so we were living on almost nothing. The cost of healthcare seemed impossible because we had a big family. And so when I started researching ministries, there was no comparison. It was just the best deal. And so a year after we joined, my 10-year-old daughter at the time got pneumonia, and it was scary. Someone sent a card just to Maggie, and it said, not just that we're praying for you, but that God will always take care of you, and here's $5 for you to go out and get ice cream. It was just really special.
To make that connection, that's an amazing thing. I was sold on Samaritan Ministries. I just thought, okay, I'm a part of this.
The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Happy to be here with you today, folks. Thanks for joining us here on Financial Issues. Hope you enjoyed that discussion about dividends there. A couple reminders for you. Make sure to sign the petition for AMD. That stock is no longer biblically responsible. Whether you're a partner or not, you can sign that petition. Just go to financialissues.org, scroll down, click sign the petition. I just dropped the link in the chat a few minutes ago. This company sadly is engaging in LGBTQ activities. They're supporting the LGBTQ agenda. They're also paying for the travel expenses of employees seeking abortions. So make sure that you make your voice heard there, folks. To be honest, we don't know if they're going to listen to our cries, but it's still worth it. It's still worth it to speak the truth. And so that's what we're calling you to do. So make sure that you do that right now. Also, wanted to share some great news with you. We have reached 15 ultrasound machines that have been underwritten so far. 15 ultrasound machines. That is amazing. Great job to all of you, the listeners of Financial Issues. You are in the fight saving babies with Preborn. So great job there. If you have not given to Preborn yet this month, please consider doing that right now. The easiest way to do it, financialissues.org, and just click that Preborn banner there. Folks, I want you to understand just how important it is. That ultrasound machine that is the life-saving tool. That might be an unborn baby's only chance at survival if they have an abortion-minded mother who's ready to kill their child, and then they hear the heartbeat and they see the scan and they realize this child is not only bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, but it's also a child. It's a human being with a soul, created by God, loved by God. It's a soul that's deserving of life. Very often, that is what changes the heart of a mother to choose life for her baby. Estimated 80 to 90% of times that the mother hears the heartbeat of the child, she then chooses life. So those ultrasound machines are being underwritten every time we hit $5,600. So if you're out there today and you're someone who has $5,600 to give, I'd urge you to consider doing that today. That will underwrite one ultrasound machine, then we'll be at 16. So great job to all of you so far. Let's continue fighting for the lives of babies and spreading the gospel with preborn. Financialissues.org, click the preborn banner once again. Let's get to some news headlines here, folks, before the ag report. I saw this one cross my eyes yesterday. I thought it was very interesting. The Federal Reserve president, one of them, is saying that the next move is likely going to be to lower rates. Now, if the alarm bells are going off in your mind, I hope they are, because the last I heard from Fed Chair Jerome Powell was that the next move is likely going to be not to move rates. Well, now we're hearing that one of the Fed elites is saying the next move will be to lower rates. This was Fed Reserve Bank of New York President John Williams. He said this on Monday. The central bank's move will likely be to lower interest rates, but he didn't provide any specific sort of timeline. So whether this is at the next meeting or whether this is before the election, as Shanna and I have talked about, is likely what is going to happen. Williams said the monetary policy is in a very good place, that interest rate cuts will happen eventually. Not as specific as perhaps we would like. He added, overall, the economy is moving back into a better place. He said he expects the nation's GDP to increase between 2% to 2.5%. Folks, listen, the Fed continues to lead from behind, and I'm not even sure if the Federal Reserve knows what it wants or knows what it needs to do. We're seeing conflicting information here. So we'll keep an eye out on what the Federal Reserve does as we continue on here, moving to our next meeting, which will take place in a few weeks. We also saw Disney report earnings yesterday. There's a new poll out, really interesting, shows that Americans overwhelmingly want Disney to return to family-friendly entertainment. The number is 71%, according to a new Rasmussen poll. 71% of U.S. adults say that Disney should return to wholesome programming. I could not agree more with this. I know you all agree with me as well. If you listen to this show, you probably agree. I'm not sure why you'd be listening to this show if you didn't agree with stuff like that, but we're glad to have you nonetheless if you are, and to teach you about biblically responsible investing. That same percentage, 71%, said the entertainment giant should let parents decide when and what to teach their children about sexuality. Boy, what a novel idea that is. 54% said Disney's LGBTQ push in its programming is not appropriate for children under the age of 12. Now, folks, as you know, Walt Disney is nowhere near biblically responsible. It's a very well-known brand. It's a giant in the entertainment industry. And it's a brand that has become infamous for pushing this far left-leaning agenda, goes directly against biblical values. We've got options for you. If you invest with us, if you use our investment models, we've got options for you. This is why it's so important for you to be wise with your investments, because we don't want your money funding this stuff. You would never give your money to a person on the street that said they were going to use it to push an agenda that violates your core values, yet so many Christians unknowingly do this with their investment money. They're giving to companies that murder babies, and they're giving to companies that push an LGBTQ agenda and are transing children. And so I just want to really encourage you folks that if you are not a partner with our ministry, now's a great time to become one. You go to financialissues.org, click that partnership button, become a partner today. And you can learn how you can use your money to honor God. And that's really what we're all about doing here. Let's move to the markets now. Yesterday, Treasury yields were decreasing, and the markets seemed relatively pleased with that, moderately pleased at least. It pushed the markets into positive territory. By midday, they were relatively mixed, and that's actually how they finished by the end of the day. So the Dow Jones was barely positive, riding a 5-day win streak, actually. That's its longest winning streak since Christmas time. The S&P 500 was up 0.1%, and the NASDAQ was the lone loser. It was down 0.1%. Oil closed at right around $70 $78, $78.50 a barrel. And those 10-year Treasury yields down at the closing bell to about 4.46%. The markets, as they're looking right now, down as they were in the pre-markets. The Dow Jones is right at the flat line, while the S&P 500 is down 0.25%, and the NASDAQ is down 0.5%. Oil, as it sits, is creeping down a little bit as well, under $78 a barrel, while the 10-year Treasury yields is hanging right around where it was yesterday at 4.4, almost 4.5%. So that's what we're looking like this morning for the markets here, folks. Before the ag again, let's get to a couple of partner questions here. Grant, you want to knock out a couple of these, buddy?
Yeah, of course.
Let's do it.
We have a question from Lisa.
Yeah.
I will be receiving about $14,000 shortly. I don't want to keep putting it in my bank account, but I need to keep at least a half of it in a liquid state. I'm of the belief not to keep all of my eggs in one basket. Any suggestions for banks or even online banks? I wouldn't mind investing about $6,000 in a CD for a year. I need to have access for about a year for a wedding. I know we're not talking about a lot of money here, but I sure work hard for it. Any advice would be appreciated.
Lisa, thanks for that question. That is a good one there. And, even though it's a little bit of money, that's okay. It's still important, So let me say this, I believe the answer to your question simply is that it's up to you. Simply pick an institution that you trust and that's convenient for you, and then use that institution. I will tell you this, credit unions are great. You can't go wrong with banks either. Just remember this, Lisa. Your deposits either need to be backed by the FDIC at $250,000, or if it's a credit union, backed by some other reputable, valid backing group. Kind of like that. If it's a Christian organization, that's great. It's going to be tough to find Christian organizations, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. At one point in our ministry's history, we did actually promote a Christian organization that we no longer do anymore. But, you're thinking correctly here about not keeping all your eggs in one basket. You don't need to go overboard with this, but I do think diversifying even where you have your money in this small sense is not bad at all. And again, you said it's a small amount of money, but it's still important. Never think of less importance about the amount of money, even if it's a smaller amount, because it's still, like you said, it's the money that you've worked hard for, and that's a really good thing. Here's the deal. Much like brokerage accounts, it's going to be almost impossible for you to find a truly biblically responsible bank or even credit union. So we don't promote any one singular credit union or bank. Therefore, I would tell you, it's up to you. Pick one that you trust. Make sure it's FDIC insured, and I think you'll do a great job. Now, as for your CD question, quickly here, Dan actually did a clip on this some years ago on YouTube. It's titled, Should You Invest in CDs? I think that'll help you out a lot there. I'll drop that into the chat here during the Ag Report, but I hope that helps you there, Lisa. Here comes Craig Halgard with the Ag Report, and then we'll be back with more financial issues after this.
This is Craig Halgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for May 8th. Corn started the day with another short covering rally based on the disappointing planting pace. However, that rally attracted farmer selling, which ultimately pushed prices lower. At the closing bell, July corn was down 2 cents, closing at $4.67 per bushel. Soybeans saw the fun short covering rally lose momentum as another wave of producer selling hit the market. Soybeans hit new 4-month highs, and that generated aggressive selling by both U.S. and Brazilian farmers. At the close, July beans were 2 1/4 cents lower at $12.46.5. Monday's crop progress report had the condition for the hard red winter wheat crop rated at 50% good to excellent, and that was better than what the trade was expecting. The report also showed the hard red spring wheat crop at 47% planted, also exceeding expectations. And as a result, prices were lower during yesterday's trade. Minneapolis July wheat was down 6 3/4 cents, closing at $7.18 3/4. Kansas City was 11 1/4 cents lower to close out the session at $6.64 per bushel, while Chicago wheat declined by 6 cents, closing at $6.42 3/4. Cotton futures seem like they found a floor from which they can try and mount a rally. At yesterday's close, the July futures were up 44 points, ending the day at 77.50. Livestock futures were stronger straight across the board. June live cattle futures were 65 cents higher at $177.62.5 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle rose by $1.55, settling at $254.42.5 per hundred. And we had June lean hog futures up by 15 cents as they closed out the session at $98.60 $28.32 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures saw their sharp run up take a bit of a break yesterday. At the close, June futures were down slightly. They were down 2 points for the day as they ended the session at 19.43. This has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life. Get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Samuel Case, news anchor with FISM News, sits down to read real comments from real viewers.
You know, I tend not to read social media comments, so this is kind of a big deal for me. I'm kind of nervous, but we're going to see how it goes. It's not George. Thanks. It's been a while since I've watched real news. I kind of have a suspicion your name actually is George, but, you know, regardless, thanks so much. We really do strive to be as authentic, real, and professional as we possibly can be, so we really do appreciate that you're picking up on that. And this one's from Echo Pixel. Keep spreading truth. Will do, Echo. Love this. It's just the news, no spin. It'd be nice if all the news was this way, honestly. Just all the facts and no bias. Sadly, that's a pipe dream, though. If you don't like what other news outlets are doing and you like what we're doing, you can always follow us on FISMnews.tv. That's our website. You can also follow us on social media and by downloading the FISM app as well.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Hey, folks, make sure to sign the petition for AMD whenever you get the chance. I saw a couple of you did. That's great. Thank you so much. Let's keep making our voice heard there as well. We got some more questions that we're going to get to here right now. Before we do, real quickly, the markets, as we check them, are now still all in negative territory, a little bit lower than they were when we just checked them there. The Dow's a little bit further below the flat line than it was, but still pretty close to it, while the S&P 500 is 0.5% down, and the NASDAQ is about 0.4% in the negative territory as we speak. So let's get to some more questions there. Grant, by the way, just to clarify something, Grant and I are not brothers, although we do look very similar. I think Lisa had said, different Lisa than the one we just answered, had said in the chat a couple days ago, boy, those guys look like brothers. I appreciate that because Grant's a very handsome guy. So if I can look like Grant, that's a good thing. But no, we are not brothers. Brothers in Christ, but not physical brothers.
Yeah, well, you're pretty handsome too, so.
Well, thank you, Grant. You're very kind.
So Robert says from social media, hi, can you help me find a bank I should be using?
Yeah, Robert, thanks for that question. Much the same like I just told Lisa. It's going to be almost impossible to find one that's biblically responsible. So we don't promote any particular one bank, as we had said. There was one point in our ministry's history that we did. We don't do that anymore. So best practice, pick one that's convenient for you. Use that one. Make sure that it's FDIC insured. And I think you'll do fine. Yeah, it's good. What else do we have there, Grant?
All right, we also have a question from Dale. When a sell alert is issued by Financial Issues, is there a recommended method on how quickly one sells off their position? Is it recommended to sell all shares at once or to divest over a period of time? If the market happens to take a significant drop right after the alert is issued, would it be recommended to wait a few days to see if the drop was relatively temporary?
Thanks for that question, Dale. It's a good one. There's a couple facets to this question, so I'll do my best to kind of answer it in a couple different ways here. But let me answer your two questions first there about recommending to sell all shares at once or divesting, and how quickly one should sell off their position. Our recommendation as a ministry is that these sell alerts should be immediate and absolute. So as soon as possible right now, when you see a sell alert, as soon as you can get to your computer and get on your brokerage platform and sell that stock, that would be our recommendation. That would only change if there was ever some kind of specification in that specific sell alert, which will rarely happen, if ever. And to my understanding, I'm not sure if that's ever happened in the life of the ministry where Dan or Shanna ever issued a sell alert and they said, hey, sell part of this stock or sell part of it and then wait to sell the rest. I don't think that's ever happened. Now, it's different when we're talking about, for example, rebalancing in terms of sectors. So you may have seen Dan in the past say, hey, pare back on the energy sector a little bit. That's not a recommendation for right now. I'm saying that's happened before, but not for a specific stock. If there's a specific stock, there's a specific position that we've asked you to sell, that sell will be absolute and immediate, basically. So if the company sold, it's meant to happen completely, meaning sell all your shares in it, get out of it completely, and it's meant to be immediate. Literally, as soon as you can get to your brokerage platform and click that sell button, that's going to be true. And, it's true all the time, but it's especially true, Dale, when the company is using your money to promote things that grieve the heart of God. So when we issue sell alerts because of BRI violations, that's an extra measure of intensity that we're putting behind that, saying, listen, this company is right now at this moment using your money to murder babies. They're using your money to trans kids. They're using your money to make pornographic material, which is often related to sex slavery, by the way, very, very often. So they're using your money to promote human trafficking. They're using your money for any other number of ills, promote the gambling industry, anti-family entertainment. You don't want your money. If you're a Christian, you should not want your money used for that stuff. That should grieve your heart as it grieves God's heart. So if that's happening, you need to get out immediately because your money has now been compromised spiritually. It's now been compromised. And so you need to get out as quickly as possible, So whenever we recommend a sell alert, the quickly question is as quickly as you can. Okay. Now, your second question, which would it be recommended to wait a few days to see if the drop was relatively temporary? Should the market take a significant drop after the alert's issued? Well, let me say this right away, Dale. It could happen that the market could take a dip after we issue that sell alert. But I'm kind of reading your question this way to say, if you sell it immediately upon our recommendation and then the market drops, I think you'll be all the more glad that you took our recommendation, and sold it when you did. Not only did you get out of, say, a non-biblically responsible company, but you also got out before the market dropped. Now, here's why I would not recommend waiting a few days to see if the market drop was temporary. I don't think that's a wise move. I would much rather urge you to just say, if you see a sell alert, sell immediately. Here's why. I think that starts stepping into kind of the hairy territory that we call market timing. And you've heard us talk on the show before about market timing. It's a dangerous thing. We don't recommend it. There are hardly any rich market timers on Wall Street because rarely has anyone been successful at the practice of being beholden to the market and trying to micromanage and pick, okay, is this the perfect time to get in? Is this the perfect time to get out? Shannon mentioned it on the show. I believe it might have been on yesterday's program, talking about how if you're a market timer, you have to be right twice. You have to be right when you get in and you have to be right when you get out. That's very, very hard to do. That's kind of like winning the lottery twice. Imagine how hard it is to win the lottery once, but you got to win it twice. It's almost impossible. That's also why we don't recommend gambling. It's also a bad thing. We really don't recommend market timing. And I think if you're of the mindset where, you're kind of waiting to see if the market takes a drop after a sell alert and you decided not to sell that company, I think what's going to end up happening is you'll actually have some regret that you didn't sell it when you could have. And there's also the possibility too, what if the market drops and then it keeps dropping? What if it drops and it doesn't come back up? Well, now you're left with a company that you should have sold and the market hasn't come back up, and now you have to sell it at a loss anyway. You'll be kicking yourself for not selling when you had the chance for a higher price, I would say here's the best practice. Get in when you get in and get out when there's a sell alert. And don't second guess yourself at all. It's very easy for us, not just in our investing, but in all different areas of life, to second guess our decisions. And in doing so, we almost try to play God in that sense. I can recall a time in my life where I'll share this. I wasn't planning to share this, but I'll share it with you. I was dating a girl that we probably shouldn't have been in a relationship together. We were both professing believers, but we just weren't really good for each other. And I kind of knew that for a long time, but I decided, I'm going to stick with this because I believe it is God's will that I'm going to marry this girl. I was playing God there. Obviously, it wasn't God's will that I married that girl because I ended up marrying another girl named Megan, who is the greatest wife I could have asked for, and I have 2 children with her. God's plan obviously was different. It's much better to not try to play God and to just be obedient. And we believe that the way for you to be obedient with your money is to take it out of companies that are wicked. And we believe part of that for sure is to be able, if you're using the FISM model, trust in the recommendations that we give you. I'm not at all trying to say that our recommendations are divine and of equal level as the Word of God, but I am saying that we have wisdom. We've been given wisdom, and so we believe that wisdom can help you. So if you have been given the chance to take a recommendation, for example, taking a sell alert when we issue it, we believe that's a good idea. It's just much better to save yourself the headache. So get in when you get in, get out when there's a sell alert, and don't second guess yourself. There are no rich market timers on Wall Street, Dale, and being right twice is pretty impossible. So it's just much better. Follow the long-term strategy we put forth. It includes the sell alerts from time to time. We believe if you do that, you will do a great job. So I hope that's helpful for you, Dale. I hope you will follow up if you have any more questions there. I know oftentimes these answers that I give will sometimes lead to more questions. So please do ask those questions. What else we have there, Grant?
All right. We also have a question from Michael. Hi, Shanna and team. Thank you for all of your service to the partners of FISM and God's Kingdom. I've inherited a silver bar and I am interested in selling it. Is there a company that FISM recommends or cautions against using for this transaction? Thank you and God bless.
Thanks for your question, Michael. Yeah, there are many companies we would caution against. And I think that's really the key here is when you're selling something like silver or gold, just be very, very careful because there are so many gold hawks out there. Dan used to warn about these all the time. Be very cautious when you pick one. So I'm glad you reached out to us because that shows that you are cautious about it. The one company that Dan was okay with for years that you can use for your gold and silver transactions if you're selling would be APMEX, APMEX. That's APMEX.com. APMEX. You know what? I'll go ahead and plop that in the chat as well. I'm not sure, Michael, if you're listening on the website, but if you are, here it is for you. So just use that. I think that'll do you well there. So. Good stuff there. Grant, not sure we have time for any more today, brother. So, folks, I want to just close the show by reminding you what an opportunity we have to be able to fund the light with preborn. I saw a headline that crossed my eyes. One more here. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, is suing a pro-life organization, 11 crisis pregnancy centers, for promoting the abortion reversal pill. Now, she's claiming that these defendants are using false and misleading statements about the pill's effectiveness. If you've watched our program for a while, we actually have a testimonial we run that features a woman who had a successful reversal of her abortion, which is just an amazing thing. But folks, this is just another example of a political contingent that is trying everything it can to suppress the truth and to twist what the truth is, saying that saving the lives of babies is somehow harmful, not only to the baby, but to the mother. It's actually quite ridiculous when you think about it. The truth about abortion is that abortion is murderous, abortion is racist, abortion is sexist, abortion is all those evil things that the left claims Christians are, for example. Abortion is actually all of those things. And so we need to stand up and we need to defend those who cannot defend themselves. That's why we're doing this Mother's Day campaign with Preborn. Financialissues.org, click that Preborn banner. And consider making a donation to Preborn today. Even if you can only do $28 provides one ultrasound scan, which could save the life of a child. It's an amazing thing. We're well on our way. We got over 15 machines underwritten, so let's keep it moving here in the month of May, folks. Good to be here with you today on Financial Issues. God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with the money that God has given us. Until tomorrow, I'm Seth Udinsky signing off, and we'll see you then for more Financial Issues. Have a great day.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM